Hello, welcome to another excelattheoffice.com video to help you excel at the office and in Microsoft Excel and other skills. My name is Adrian, and this video I'm going to take you through some of the data I've collected on the BBC TV license fee, while also covering a bit about TV licensing, take you through some of my workflow on conditional formatting, inserting the right graphs and charts. I'll show you how to make charts such as these that just look far nicer than the defaults that are produced by Excel. I'll also tell you how you can whether you need to pay your TV license while I'm here, because you may or may not need a TV license in your place of work or at home if your home is your office. Yeah, so let's get a bit of background. So the BBC is a publicly funded corporation in the United Kingdom. TV licensing is an arm of that organisation, and BBC uses the brand TV licensing to collect its revenue from the public. There was a bit of a hoo-ha recently because they bumped up the price to £169.50 per year, which is about £14 a month, which seems quite a lot more than services like Netflix and Amazon that I think you can get both together on those for that price. What I've done, I've gathered data from TV licensing. TV licensing is run by Capita, subcontracted by the BBC to Capita to gather its funds for it. I've gone and gathered the kind of reports, and the controversy recently, last year there was a controversy about how it pays its top people. So for example, Gary Lineker, it's most famously, there was controversy over his £2 million a year salary, which if you run the maths is quite interesting. That would be the whole of Falkirk in Scotland or the whole of Salisbury in England. All those towns' TV licenses fund just one person's salary, so that's quite an interesting perspective. Just first of all, I'm going to give you a bit of information about whether you need a TV license, because you might want to save yourself some money. So you only need a TV license if you're recording or watching live TV on any channel or streaming service, or you want access to a BBC iPlayer. Anything else, so if you only watch catch-up TV, you don't actually need a TV license. But either way, if you're dissatisfied and you don't wish to watch live TV anymore or use the iPlayer, then you can perfectly legally not pay a TV license. But anyway, that's a bit of background about the TV licensing situation. What I'm going to show you now is some of my workflow where I've gone and looked at how the license has changed over many decades. So the license, interestingly, the license was first brought in 1922 for radio, but then television licensing came in 1946, and then the first colour TV license came around in 1968. And what I've done here, so I've compared the license fee against the inflation comparator for each month. And so if it were to keep aligned to inflation, based on £10, then you would expect to see the license in 1968 to be £145 this year. It's slightly higher than that. And what I've used is the Bank of England. This is a quite handy tool if you want to check the inflation for any year. You can use the Bank of England inflation calculator. So £10 in 1968, according to the latest month, it's just gone up slightly because I did this data a couple of months ago. So £147 now. That's inflation and the effect of inflation, whereby the value of your money decreases each year. So I've gone through their various reports each year, gathering the key statistics that we're going to do some metrics upon, as well as I've translated all the kind of annual license fees prior to the latest reports from these kind of PDFs that it shares into the license costs. And that's useful because then what we can do with that data is produce a line chart. So let's compare now each year across the actual cost and then what it would be were it to have kept pace with inflation. So the way we do that, we select all our data, and always under insert, when you're doing date driven information, always choose a line graph. So for example, there we go. I'm going to actually remove that first series because it's interpreting it as numerical information. So there's the basis of our line graph. I'm going to minimize the ribbon, show tabs only, just to maximize the working space I've got. So there we go. So there's the license fee, and what we can do is I'm going to right click actually. I'm going to bring up the formatting so I don't use space on the ribbon. I'm going to format this series line, solid line, and I'm going to format it red, and I'm going to oversize the width of it by just bunging that up. And then this line, the comparator, again, make it big so it's very visible. I'm going to format that grey. In the title, you might want to call it, let's go BBC versus inflation. And what I'm going to do is select my data, right click and select my data so that my axis labels are those dates rather than the 1 through to however many rows there are, 57 rows. Click OK and OK that. And this is a bit of a longer form video because I'm sharing with you my workflow, talking a bit about the BBC and so on. This is just to help you learn in real time how to do nice graphs and charts and sort things out as I come across them. So there's the basis of my chart. What I'm going to do with the title, under my formatting text options, I'm going to have solid fill, make sure it's black because black on white is the most easiest way to read text. I'm going to just bring up the ribbon temporarily. I'm going to make it bold and I'm going to oversize it. Here's a little tip. If you've only got 2 comparators and you're naming them in the title, you don't need a legend, so I can select that and delete it to maximize the space I've got for the graph. And actually you can just make the text the colors of the lines. So that's refers to the red line, and then people know what's what, and that's the inflation. I'm happy with my axes labels, but on the amounts, but I'm not happy with my years. I want every year listed. If I move it, I almost get every year listed. But the way to fix that is instead of so you right click and bring up your formatting pane. Under the axis options and the bar chart looking thing, bring up those axis options. The label options. And instead of automatic interval between labels, because currently it's doing a label every 2, I want to specify my interval unit and label every 1. To make room for my labels, I'll make that wider and maybe make the text a bit smaller. So there we go. So that's how the license fee has increased each year compared to inflation. So that's one line graph. Another one you might want to do is a bar chart that shows the gains and losses each year. So using this data, where I've gathered the recent year's data from its reports, so in each report, in each financial year, it reports a suite of key metrics. So what the license fee is, which I've done for each year, how many licenses there are in force. So despite the growing population, over this time. So the population since 2006-07 has grown by about 6.5 million. The licenses have stayed the same. So a useful metric is to kind of figure out, well, what's the licenses per 100 people? And if you want to do per, whether it's 100 or per 1,000 or per 100,000, you take your, as I've done here, this is the formula. I'll zoom in. So equals C2, so open bracket C2, so the licenses divided by your population. So you're figuring out a licenses per population, and then times it by the 100, 1,000. I've chosen 100 because actually it's quite interesting to see how that's changed. In terms of how much income that then generates for the BBC, I've rounded it to millions, so this is actually 3.3 billion and then up to 3.7 billion in the most recent year that they've reported. They haven't reported the latest 23-24 year yet. And then a good performance indicator of the department of the BBC called TV Licensing that gathers the fees is how much how much it costs to gather all that money. So spends 100 or more million each year on gathering those license fees. And what I've done using that, based on comparing the income and then the percentage that has gone to get that income, is this metric: percent of income spent on collection. And as per my other video where I show you how to calculate percentages, then this might be a helpful one. So to calculate a simple percentage, something as a percent of something else, all you do is type, is in the formula, is your small number divided by the denominator. So that will give the small number as a percentage of the denominator, aka the big number, the full picture. So your small number, part of the picture, divided by the full picture, the denominator, is the percentage. And all you do is format that as a percentage in Excel. A little bit of help on conditional formatting under the home part of the ribbon. If I just select an area, I'm just gonna use the ribbon for a bit. I'll show you how to use some conditional formatting to start to make your data look more presentable. The ready-made conditional formats are quite handy actually. So just go to the conditional format option, color scales, and let's choose this one where the higher number is red, aka bad, and the lower number is good. So as a kind of performance metric for TV licensing, the less of the money it spends on actual collection, the better for the BBC, the more, the worse. So it seems to have gone down up until the mid 20-teens, and then has crept up again in the last year. It's up again to 3.5% of all the revenue is spent on collecting revenue. And then finally, I've also included an evasion rate, which is what the BBC estimate to be how many people should have licenses in the UK population, but don't, and they feel are illegally evading it. Always it's an estimate because they don't have any kind of information, any practical information on that. All they know is whether or not an address does or does not have a license. They then need to go and kind of investigate and peer through windows and knock on doors to find out whether or not they think people are using their TV sets to watch live TV. So the evasion rate, if we do some conditional formatting on this, so this metric would be higher is bad for the BBC, lower is good. So we can again do a color scale. You can use the red, yellow and green, or sometimes the red and green is a bit clearer. So your ready-made formatting that shows that, and over time we can see the evasion rate has apparently grown, as well as the licenses gained and lost, and change in revenue has shrunk. So as revenue's gone down, evasion rates gone up. So those are some metrics. Those are some of the inbuilt conditional formatting. You can of course do your own conditional formatting by just creating each rule independently. So what you can do is choose cells that contain specific amounts. So if the cell value in this case, but you can do it for whether it contains text if you want to categorize things. I want the cell value is less than, let's say, 0. I'll choose a format. I'm going to make the fill red. So when it's losing licenses, I'm going to make it red. I might change the text actually to the font to bold and white as well, just to make that stand out a bit more. Okay. Click OK for that. But then I can go to manage my rules and then add each rule thereafter, so to be a bit more precise with my formatting. So for example, I want to choose cells that contain a cell value of greater than 0, and I'll format these cells again, bold text, bold white text, but my fill this time is going to be green for good. Click OK. So anything over 0, good. Anything under 0, bad. If it's precisely 0, then obviously it's going to just stay the same. And click OK. So there we go. There's my conditional formatting based on something I've defined, the boundaries I've defined, rather than the auto boundaries that are kind of the scales that you can use. But yeah, so that's a bit about conditional formatting. Now, if I want to see how those licenses gained or lost more visually on a chart, the scale of them each year, where green is gained, lost is red. A bar chart's quite helpful for this. So again, you just select your data, insert a chart. Let's just go for a 2D column, never go for 3D column, and never go for any of the oh yeah, here we are. So I select my chart, and sometimes some people use all these things to kind of appear fancy. Generally, clearer is better, and a white plain background will be easier for your audience's understanding. But we need to do some stuff to this chart before it makes any sense at the moment. The first thing I'm going to do is change the font, because I don't actually like the Calibri it gives everything. So select the whole chart, and I'm going to choose Arial. I go to Arial down there. Everything's in Arial now because I've selected the whole chart rather than individual components. I'm also going to go for bold, and what I'm going to do as well, I don't like this time axis being right in the middle, so I'm going to go to my format axis options and go to the labels, and the label position is going to be low rather than next to axis is the default. So I'm going to, but my labels here need to be the dates. So I'm going to select the chart and go to select under chart design, select my data. And again, in this horizontal axis series, I'm going to edit these and choose my years so it follows across from the years, and click OK. So now I've got my chart information. I can ensure, yep, they marry up, because here's my data. It's outlined it for me in that blue ring there, and my data labels are in this purple outline here. So, and I can see that they line up nicely. Sometimes you might have them misaligned and be reporting the wrong data for the wrong years, but that's all good for me. Just a quick tip. You don't need to, if you've got more than one series, as per my other chart. If I show you on my other chart, just quick. wherever it is. Let's zoom right out to find it. Oh, there it is. If I go to select data, you see I've got years for series 1, and if I wanted to I could rename that a sensible name, but I don't need to because I haven't got the legend there. Series 2 has automatically got those years. I don't need to do it individually for each one, and if it's not there on series 2, if it's just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it doesn't matter because it will be displaying based on what you've put in series 1. So that's a little time saver there. Anyway, back to this one, and I'm going to what I'll do actually, I'm going to unfreeze these panes, because at the moment I've got the panes freeze so that as I scroll down my titles stay there. And the way you do that, I mean, that's quite handy for presentation, but while I'm working on it, I don't want that showing because I want to maximize my space. So under view, there's a button called freeze panes. I've frozen them with the top row and first column. What I'm going to do is just unfreeze the pane. So now I scroll and that goes away, and I've got more space to work with this chart. So these lines are really skinny, these bars are really skinny at the moment and not very impactful, so I'm going to select all the bars. I'm going to go again to my format, bar series, and my gap width. I don't know why 219% is the default, it seems pretty precise, but I think about 30% is a good alternative. And while I'm here, I'm going to also format those bars with green. So I'll do the all green first, because there's more green than there are red, but in more recent years they're going down, so I'm going to select each one individually thereafter and format them red. And you can even format them various shades of red if you wish to kind of accentuate your visual display. So the most recent year, that's when most people, 500,000 people, cancelled their TV license because they don't watch or are not interested in watching live TV anymore, or the BBC services. So that's dark red because that's obviously bad for the BBC. So again, we can give this a chart title, so change in revenue, and when to save space here, rather than have loads of zeros like 300,000, 200,000 and pounds, what you can do is just put the values you're working with in the title so that people know to interpret these values as millions of pounds. Oh, is it change in revenue? Sorry, it's the licenses gained or lost. Change in licenses. And if ever you've wondered, do we spell licenses with a C or an S? And just a little tip that I learned when I'm researching this video. The C is the actual document. The S is the act of providing licensing services. So S is the service, C is the document. So there you go, little English tip there as well. And it's not in millions of pounds, it's just millions of people, or millions of licenses, as it were. So that chart's looking a lot better already. I've again used the title to denote the gains and losses. And what you can also do is embed into a chart. What I haven't done in this one is embed my image into it so it doesn't move with the chart. But this one, I've embedded the image. You see how the image and my website URL moves with the chart. So the way to make that happen is before you insert a text box or a picture from your device, you first select the chart itself and then go to insert a picture, or let's do it with a text box if I can remember where it is. Oh yeah, across to the right here, insert text box, and that way you can kind of annotate your chart with your website, with your logo, or with any other kind of thing, and when you move that chart, it will move with it. So that's useful bar charts, line charts, and then finally what I'm going to show you now is how to combine a line with a bar chart on two axes. So for example, across here I put it. So this one is the license revenue and annual percentage change. So obviously I can't plot these on the same axes. I need to show revenue as a line to show how the revenue's changed, and over revenue's been going up for the BBC except for the last few years, but then the change in licenses, or the change in revenue, sorry, so whether that revenue is going up fast or down fast by the percentages. So they're different metrics, but we want to place them on a chart because they're related. So again, we'll go back to my trends. So my revenue is the income for the BBC, so I'm going to select the income. I'm going to hold down control. I'll just move this one out of the way. Oh, here we are. So here's the revenue for the BBC, sorry. So let's choose that data here from 2007-8, because also I've got the same year for the start of my change, because obviously the change can't come until we've already got a revenue item. So I've held down control and selected that array as well. Now I'm going to go to insert. First of all, I'll just do a 2D column. So the problem I have with this chart, obviously, is I can only see one of the series, the revenue, which is based on these thousands denominator here, percentages, because every percentage is less than 1. I can't see the orange series. So what I'll need to do is change this to a kind of combination chart. So the way to do that is select some of your data, or just select the chart, change chart type, and actually I want a combo chart, not a clustered, not the column chart. So this will give you options whereby you can then choose what you want your chart to show as. So I want a line for the blue stuff, so the revenue is a line changing each year, tracking each year, and then the orange, I want those as little column bars, and I want to plot them on a secondary axis. So there we go, we get a nice preview there. So my percentages are to do with the orange bars, my 1000 numbers are to do with the blue line. Click OK. And by default it exaggerates the axis for you, so it's only starting at 3100 to kind of zone in on that change. I quite like that because it shows the kind of growth in revenue and then a slight decline. I'm going to remove the legend because I'm just going to call this in the title BBC revenue versus change. So again, I'm going to format this blue for my revenue, and I'll format this orange for my change in revenue, so everyone knows what's going on in this graph. I'm going to make everything bold there. Now, these bars are quite skinny, so again I'm going to select the bars, go to my format data series. So again, it's good to have this on the right here throughout, because you're going to be using it regularly. It saves having to right click and format data series each time. Again, I'm going to let's make this 40% or so, so that's okay. And my line, I'm going to format this a little bit wider, just to make it kind of more impactful. What I also want to do for congruence is format the axis labels. So this side I'm going to make blue, so everyone's clear what I'm talking about in terms of revenue. and that's basically millions of pounds, because it's 4,000 million is 4 billion, versus the percent change in revenue, which this side is denoting. And so I'm going to also format that orange like the bars it refers to. And then finally, or near finally, we're going to add our axis labels. So we select anywhere on the chart under the chart design. So I'm going to select my data, and again, I only needed to do it for series 1. I might even edit the name of series 1 and call that revenue, just to do it properly. Series 2, change, because if you've got more than 2 series, it's quite handy just to name them, because otherwise it's easy to lose track with just series 1, series 2 and all those computer generated one. I'm going to select the first one and then edit my category labels. So my category labels go from here to here, 2007-8 to 22-23, so monitoring over a long period of time. Click OK, and those are now displaying as I want them at the bottom. If I'm being really pernickety, I want the text. I don't like the text at an angle like that, so I can go to the options again, the formatting options. So under the text options, this text box feature, text direction, it's trying to do it horizontal, so then now it's giving me a compromise because it can't fit horizontally. I'm just going to ask it to rotate all the text so it's pointing upwards like this. So then it's clearly aligned to the eye with the bar or the data point that it's referring to. And I'm going to make that bold and maybe a bit smaller so it takes up a bit less space in my chart. Now finally, you might want to add data labels to be more precise about these percentage changes. So I'm going to add data labels to my orange bars. I'm going to right click, add data labels is the quickest way of doing it, and you see there it's added them. And again, just for congruence, I might want to I'll make it a bit smaller, make the font orange and bold, and because I'm very pernickety, I quite like things not exceeding the boundaries of the bar, because then it starts to encroach on the other stuff. So rather than Calibri, I do like Arial, but that's going to make it even worse because that's quite a fat text. So Arial Narrow is a good text to use to make your text still quite readable and large, but not take as much space. I might even do this Arial Narrow as well. So that just shrinks it down, squishes it up a bit without being too unreadable. So that's utilizing that table of data. I've shown you how to, just a recap, I've shown you how to conditionally format it within the table itself. But if you want to go further, you can obviously chart and plot things. So I've plotted this extensive long-term data into a line chart. So lines are always very good for when you're using time series data. So time series means anything you're tracking over time, your dates always go at the bottom axis here. That's the x-axis, and your values on the left axis. So that's the y-axis. So that's good for plotting two lines on one graph. I've shown you up and down bar charts and how to format individual bars to make it quite impactful for an infographic or even a dashboard that's quite readable. I'm currently working on a Dunder Mifflin dashboard you might see at the moment. I put a video out the other day introducing that, so have a look at that if you want to see how to make a dashboard. And I've also gone through my workflow with you to kind of make a chart when you need to combine two different metrics onto one single chart, so particularly when the values are hideously different. Just a finishing touch on this, being particular as I am, I noticed that these percentages don't line up with the lines, which is annoying me. So what you kind of mental arithmetic, you kind of need to figure out, right, this is changing every 100 or so. there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 11 lines, so I need to make this into kind of 11 segments, as it were. Or I could go the other way and change my other side to be according with that. So what you'll do on this access options, under the format, instead of taking the default minimum and maximum, you will instead make your own minimum and maximum. So if instead of the default of -3 to +5, if I go -5%, 0.05 is 5%, change that, and there we go. So now I've got 11 data points. When you include the 0 as well, that's 11, along with 11 category points here. And now when you pan across with your eyes, oh look, each line lines up with both axis label. So that just makes it a bit more pleasing to the viewer. But in any case, that's how you create a nice chart with across 2 axes on both sides. So I hope you found that interesting, a bit of a dive into the BBC, its history from when it was just a radio license to TV, and how that the cost of that's changed over time, plus a bit about where you can get more data from the TV licensing and some of the metrics they produce. The Bank of England tool, that's quite handy, and some of the charts and graphs you can explore with different charts. Try making, for example, a simple line chart of the fee itself, or the licenses in force and the evasion rate, sorry. So that's quite a good combo. The licenses per 100 population, as well as the total licenses in force. I've plotted those on the same axis, or other kind of metrics, putting your image and branding or text onto a chart. So it's a bit of a longer video, this one, but I just wanted to give you an insight into my workflow, how I do stuff in real time, and so that hopefully you can follow along and brush up your skills and not make the mistakes of providing hideously formatted chart designs and garish looking things that people think look fancy but aren't right, but also just being able to do things beyond what the default of Excel is. So yeah, I hope you found that helpful. I'll get back to working on my dashboard report in due course, and until the next video, take care.